What's up? Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell up above for future uploads, and check out the links posted in the description down below to support the channel. Thank you. The Mandalorian has fallen off completely. It is very disappointing to see what was once a very promising show result in what has resulted in, which is a complete failure, and indeed something that has served to turn fans away, finally, from Star Wars. Star Wars, in my opinion, has been finished since they decided to release The Last Jedi. The Force Awakens was a very poor movie, in retrospect, for an awful lot of people. I thought so at the time. I was incredibly disappointed with the movie, and The Last Jedi was it for me. Since then, it has been disaster after disaster after disaster. And The Mandalorian was the one breath of life that had been given to Star Wars that a lot of people, like myself, tuned in to watch. Season 1 was excellent. However, I groaned at the end of Season 1 in the last few minutes when they decided to reveal that Moff Gideon had the Darksaber. Now, I knew what that meant because I had seen the Clone Wars and I had seen Rebels. And I knew at that point in time, Dave Filoni has his fingers in the pie here, and he is going to cross-contaminate and destroy this show. Dave Filoni is a huge problem. If you can't acknowledge that right now, you're in cuckoo land. He has had a hand in everything that has gone wrong with Star Wars. He has broken canon. He decided to invent time travel to save Ahsoka. Now just think about that for a moment. This character was saved from Darth Vader, and they didn't decide to go back in time even further and take Anakin Skywalker out of a situation that turned him to the dark side. He instead just left him at it. So Ahsoka is actually to blame for an awful lot that went wrong. And of course then was a character that went missing for the sequel trilogy and the original trilogy, importantly so. And of course, it's someone now that they're looking to make a TV show about. So to me, you have already got a big problem on your hands with trying to promote a character like that, especially to people that are fans of the old trilogy. Like, you have a serious problem on your hands. And this is what Dave Filoni does. He doesn't think. And The Mandalorian has now become reminiscent of a Dave Filoni project, which is cameos that make no sense, and now things that are so jarring that it puts people off altogether. This is Jack Black. And beforehand, what George Lucas used to do was George Lucas used to put people into roles that were more unknown, so that wouldn't take away from what you're seeing. You would be more engrossed in the story. It's one of the primary reasons, by the way, that he didn't have Leonardo DiCaprio as Anakin Skywalker. Leonardo was too well known at that point in time, and he went with Hayden Christensen. Masterstroke in my view. I think Hayden did a great job. And what you're starting to see now is activists and people that are more left-leaning appearing in these Star Wars TV shows and movies. Don't believe me? Look at what happened to Gina Carano. So you've got Jack Black in here, and beforehand what used to happen was this person probably would have been a voiceover, or they would have been under heavy prosthetics or whatever it might be to be an alien creature, and you wouldn't really know who it was. No, not anymore. This stuff has gone over the line in terms of jumping the shark at this stage of the game. I thought The Last Jedi was it, but this is certainly it now. This comes after the disaster of the Book of Boba Fett and the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV series. But that wasn't the only problem that people had with this episode. Jack Black is an okay actor. I would be the first to say that I enjoy School of Rock, and that's probably about it. Well, I could say even Tropic Thunder. I enjoyed his role in that, but his role was way more minimal than in any of the other projects that he has done. So to me, that was somewhat acceptable. They've dragged Christopher Lloyd, what seems like out of a retirement home, to then put him as the bad guy, of course, old white guy, you know yourself, to be taken down by the one Mandalorian. So for anyone that doesn't know, this was always going to be the way this show was going to go, which was the bait and switch was happening in season 2, and an awful lot of people didn't notice it. Bo-Katan is going to be the Mandalorian. She's going to be Mandalore. She's going to be the one that's the most important character in the series. That's why she now has the Darksaber. That's why she has seen the Mythosaur, and that is why now she is the one that's been held up, rather than Din Djarin, where this was supposed to go. Obviously, as well, if you don't know through the lore, Din Djarin's story is actually stolen from a previous story that had been told about Jango Fett. So this is the type of character that Dave Filoni is. He takes stories that have been created by others and then passes them off as his own. He's done the same with Tron, and he's going to do the same again. So to me, this is a big issue that's going to have Star Wars in the current situation with which it's in, and in the future, which is not an awful lot of interest. Star Wars Celebration's going on this weekend. Nobody's really talking about it. They've dropped a couple of teasers. They've said Andor Season 2 is coming. Who cares? It's a character that's already gone. You've decided to take a whack at Obi-Wan Kenobi. You totally destroyed the character of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader in the same process, which is amazing. It's amazing how badly they have done with Star Wars. They've also then stuck Lizzo into this show. So another person that could have been a voiceover actor, but no, they're going to stick this person in here. Now, what did this couple remind you of? That's right, they remind you of the couple that are in the Rings of Power, the dwarves. Very similar, aren't they? Very similar as well to what Disney was doing with Spider-Man and their new MJ. Of course, they told you as well too that wasn't Mary Jane Watson, but now they've slipped that in. They said her name is Michelle Watson. So your MJ now is irreparably changed in the MCU, and that is what they're going to continue to go with going forward. So what you have now is a universe that has become so jarring and so off-putting to an awful lot of people that people are just not going to return. And I think that they're right not to do that. I think a lot of people now need to start calling for people to actively boycott Star Wars. You've got an awful lot of people on channels that are out there that will watch these movies. They will pay to see these movies, to roast them. I'm roasting them. You're giving them your money though. You're actively giving the company that has regularly poked you in the eye money so that you can roast them. How about you do something a bit more, I would say, provocative, and say, okay guys, we're not going to go and see this movie. We're not going to see this TV series, and that's it. Don't pay any money. I tell you why. Look at what's happened with Hasbro. Hasbro decided this year that they were going to make windowless packaging for figures. Do you know what the collecting community did? They said, we're not buying it. And what's happening now? Hasbro are coming back to people and saying, guess what guys, the windows are back. So that's what happens when a successful boycott happens. And that is exactly what Star Wars needs right now. Star Wars, in my humble opinion, needs new owners. It needs someone to go back from the start, wipe this from memory and say, this isn't canon anymore, forget about it. Tamara Morrison is still young enough to still play Boba Fett at a reasonable age. Mark Hamill is still around. Harrison Ford is still around. And even if you didn't want to use Harrison Ford and he didn't want to come back, I absolutely believe that you could make a 7, 8 and 9 that George Lucas had actually, from my understanding, storylined and outlined what he would have done going forward to Disney, and they decided to discard that. There's so much that can be done, and they've decided to do things like this. Like, here's where we're at right now. The Mandalorian, to me, smells like that they always made it for 2 seasons and then that was going to be it. It seems to me like that they wanted to keep it spinning, and season 3 just seems like we don't really know what we want to do here. I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to make her the more important character, Bo-Katan. We're going to have her do everything, and she's going to rescue the Mandalorian, and she's going to be such a better Mandalorian than Din Djarin, and totally put him out in his own show. Yikes. This is terrible. It's bad. And it smacks of Dave Filoni. Now, for those who don't know, Jon Favreau has been credited as the writer for this season. Do you know what you have to do to be credited as a writer? You need to do 30%. Joss Whedon was credited as a writer for Justice League. Remember that one? Justice League. 30% of that he changed. Some would say even more. But 30% is all you need to do to get a credit on these things. Some of the better things that have been happening this season you could definitely attribute to Jon Favreau, but some of the other things like this are totally mind-boggling to me. I personally would point to the Order 66 rescue of Grogu to being something that can probably be attributed to Jon Favreau. However, I do find it strange that they have a character that happens to be on an elevator waiting for Grogu and a ship that's going to take off. Why did the clones just stand there and go at people from the boat instead of the ship that's taken off with Ahmed Best and Grogu? Like, it's just so logic defying, it just doesn't make any sense. And nobody has any attention to detail. Say what you want about the prequels and indeed the old trilogy. To me, there was an awful lot of attention to detail and things happened in those that made sense. In my view, I think Star Wars was taken off George Lucas. Because when you look at the messages that were shown in the original trilogy and in the prequel trilogy, even more so importantly, I think that was a man that they really realised, this guy is telling people and showing people what's going on. That's just me. That's my opinion. This show has become nothing but fluff. Total nonsense. And this is representative of that nonsense when you decide to cast Jack Black and Lizzo and have them be the rulers of some sort of planet, which is absolutely inexplicable. You then move on and have Bo-Katan be able to beat Axe Woves. I mean, it's mind-boggling stuff. And in the meantime, you've destroyed Boba Fett. He has no say or no part in this season at all whatsoever so far. And that is a character that you've completely undermined, even so much so that the actor has come out and been like, I didn't like what I did in that TV show. So are there too many spinning plates for Jon Favreau going on? Has Dave Filoni overstepped the mark and gotten involved in way more than he should have done? Is Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm at fault here? I, to be honest with you, would say it's a combination of all. I think Jon Favreau has thrown in the towel. I think it's very reminiscent of what happened with Iron Man 2, if you're familiar with that. In Iron Man 2, Jon Favreau had a more serious story going on there, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Disney came in and bought it in the meantime and totally changed what went on with Iron Man 2 to make it lighter. Because Iron Man 2 was supposed to be a story about fathers. You had the father of the Anton Vanko character, and then you had the father of Tony Stark. So those characters were supposed to be polar opposites, and in the meantime, you had Tony Stark battling alcoholism and his other issues that he had within the movie. Totally taken out, and so was the part of Mickey Rourke, which Mickey Rourke has gone on record to say, and a totally different movie was the one that was presented to people, which an awful lot of people didn't really like as a result, just to get more laughs. So this is where we're at with Disney Star Wars. What I would suggest to people is stop buying the merchandise. I mean, I don't have to say that to too many people, because the Reva lightsaber didn't fund. Goes to show you everything you need to know about how successful that character was, that only 1,500 people backed that lightsaber. The Grogu character is clearly something that they want to keep revisiting so that the money will keep coming in. But like anything with these characters, they start to wear out their welcome. And with the Grogu character, he has been doing certain things in this season that a lot of people are like, that doesn't gel with what he's been doing earlier on. Star Wars is done. I'm sad to say it, and I think this is a conversation that we've needed to have for a very long time, but this is the final nail. A lot of people have been saying, well, the final nail was in The Last Jedi. I agree. That was when I stepped off big time and was like, I have no faith in this series going forward. And they have just proved me right again and again and again. And it seemed to me like The Mandalorian Season 1 was a breath of fresh air. It seemed like a breath of life for the franchise. But honest to God, mean it, when I saw that Darksaber, I was like, that's it, it's done, it's finished. A lot of people said, oh no, I totally disagree with you at the time. Look where it's gotten us now. It's gotten us into more nonsense. So great shame on these people. As you can see here, and I just pointed out, Star Wars has over 12 million followers here on Instagram. It has 226,928 likes on this post. That doesn't make for good viewing. It actually has 16.2 million followers, as you can see here. So it has failed to resonate with people on Instagram. What does that tell you? Now, they're also saying that the viewership of this season has gone down successfully with each episode. The interest is no longer there. And I don't blame them, because the last few episodes have been terrible. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell up above for future uploads, and check out the links posted in the description down below to support the channel. And I'll talk to you later. Good luck.